Hello, I'm Ginger Conlon, Editor-in-Chief of One-to-One Media. Welcome to Challenge Busters, One-to-One's ongoing series where we tackle today's top business challenges. Join us and get into the minds of key industry experts.
We're here today with Bonnie Boisner, Vice President of Client Operations for Carlson Marketing, as part of a series on how to address some of the biggest challenges facing businesses today. Bonnie, more and more companies are trying to make a personal connection with customers and prospects, and events are a great way to do that. What's the biggest challenge companies face when using events to build customer engagement?
We see the biggest challenge that companies who are using events is really trying to determine exactly what the return on that event is. Everybody wants a great event, and they put a lot of time and effort and money into the actual event execution. What we found is perhaps not all companies put the needed time and effort into the strategy in the very beginning and planning that event, making sure that the objectives are clearly stated and the outcomes are very defined, specific, and measurable. When you do have clear objectives in the very beginning, the whole life of the event management cycle can all be pointed with all the components mapped to contributing to those outcomes. So we see a lot of them diving into the event execution, and when we really need to start early, it's a big challenge for people. Even at the end, when they are measuring event satisfaction from the attendee, they think that satisfaction is a very good measurement when we really need to look at attendee performance. So really, what are the attendees, how are they performing before the event, during the event, and after the event? That's where you can get that real return measurement. Also, knowing how that event worked and all of the results, bringing that, we call it the knowledge loop, back up to the beginning to see that the next event can build on the successes of past events. They know what events have the biggest return, what formats work better for some audiences than the other.
What can companies do to overcome that challenge?
Engage the event stakeholders in the very beginning. Set those measurable objectives and ensure those outcomes are specific and measurable. When that happens, the rest of the event, make sure that all the components of that event, whether it be in the marketing of the event and the promotion of the event, or in the meeting logistics, even down to the conference gifts, all of those components will be able to contribute to that end result of achieving the outcome.
So what's a good example you've seen of that happening?
We had a major financial industry client come to us wondering how they could measure the effectiveness of their sponsorship dollars on an upcoming women's conference. So we asked them what their objective was of the conference, and they were really involved to increase the awareness of their brand. So we sat down with them and we talked about outcomes. What were the specific outcomes? And we were able to establish together that there was boiled down to 3 specific outcomes. Number 1, would the attendees at the conference build more business with the bank? Number 2, would the attendees of the conference consider personal banking with the bank? And number 3, would they consider referring the bank to others? So with those 3 outcomes, we actually went to the whole conference, looked at every single component of that conference, and put measurements around those components so that we could map those back to the outcome. We looked at the breakout sessions, we looked at the keynote speakers, we looked at the networking kiosks, as well as even the conference gifts. And using a relationship strength tool that is a proprietary tool that we use here at Carlson, we were able to measure the effectiveness of each of those components and map them back to the outcomes. So at the end of the day, we were able to show them and quantify specifically what the impact of their sponsorship dollars were, what worked well. We even found one of the breakout sessions had a negative impact on the outcome. So they know going forward not to invest in that type of breakout sessions.
Wow, that's excellent. It really seems like you got to the detail level of the event, which is great. So do you have a takeaway for our viewers when it comes to using events to build customer engagement?
Set those objectives and set those outcomes and make them be measurable. That is a clear takeaway that's going to drive return on your event.
Excellent. Well, Bonnie, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.